Leon, wanting to explore from the UK, pronouns are he, him. I want to explore why I don't want to donate my body when I die, and also disagree with the definition of agnosticism. Sounds like we got two different topics there. Which one did you want to talk about first?
Hello, nice to be on the line with both of you. Yeah, I don't mind which. I mean, probably. I mean, yeah, the agnostic thing I think is interesting. I used to be Christian, and for a long time I was agnostic, and to me that meant, you know, I might wake up literally believing in God, praying, going to bed thinking, no, he doesn't exist. And I thought agnosticism reflects that kind of high level of doubt between believing and not. And atheism is the point you get to when you think, well, I don't know, and I'm pretty sure it's all crap, which is where I am now.
Yeah, so, neither of those are
out there.
Particularly accurate. Agnostic doesn't mean you're waffling. Theism and atheism address belief, and Gnosticism and agnosticism address knowledge.
I think in the roots, that's sort of the roots of the word, I agree. But, you know, the way, you know, words aren't prescriptive. And I think the way people use it is to kind of go, I am flip-flopping and I'm not really sure. And I don't want to quite say I'm definitely...
Yes,
or definitely
undeniably, thousands of people have appropriated a word and used it to mean something that it doesn't mean in an academic sense, doesn't mean in a historical sense. And so while I will acknowledge that, yeah, that usage is one of them, and I'm not going to be prescriptivist, it's not what I mean when I use the term, and it's not what academics mean when they use the term. And so I'll point out to people who try to use it that way that they're using it in a, you know, a non-standard. I would probably, at some point, I probably would have said wrong, but that sounds a little too prescriptivist. But the fact is, if you're communicating with people, it's really easy to sort out what they mean by just asking them.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I mean, that for me, it's really just comes down to what you mean. But when you use the term, like, I think it's flip-flopping, to me, that signifies I have a belief in a proposition for, like, God does exist. And then the next day I have a belief in that proposition that he doesn't. But it's underlined by the fact that you're agnostic in both those cases, right? You take the proposition God exists as a theist one day, but you're an agnostic, even though you accept the belief, right? You believe that to be true tentatively. So that, for me, that's more so how it works. This is just going to be if you're saying you're flip-flopping, then you're accepting the proposition. But in terms of justified true belief, for knowledge, you're not going to say it's justified, and you're not going to also make the declaration that it's without a doubt true. You're going to hold back and say it could not be true, but I accept the belief. So that's what, for me, I think it has more use. And I talk to a lot of people in like philosophical circles, and it's a lot of people really like the atheist means no God definition. And when I transitioned into thinking that might be a better definition, I really couldn't cash out that it was, because like Matt said, I think separating belief and knowledge, and in philosophy we do that with defining it as justified true belief or justified true belief plus, or whatever you might go down. You have a situation where now it makes sense because belief is one component of the knowledge, and so there is a distinction there. So for me, it seems weird that people that I talk to in philosophy in one sense accept that kind of a thing, where there's these three or four criterion for knowledge, and then they also are saying that somehow we can put those together as part of the same framework. I think that's kind of weird to me. But
yeah, I have all kinds of problems with justified true belief. If it's not too much of a problem, Leon, I'm happy to put a pin in the agnostic thing, in that we all agree that people use it differently and we have different preferred uses. Your other point about not wanting to donate your body, I'm greatly curious about it.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'll just say right now, when I die, rip me up, part me out, use whatever is useful, and destroy the rest is my thinking on my body. So I'm interested in people who have a completely different take on it.
Yeah, and so to me it feels very cognitively dissonant, my thoughts, because when I think about it rationally, I want to say what you've just said. I want to say, well, you know, my body can help someone when it dies, and I'd much rather that happens than it just, be cremated or buried. But then there's this other side of me that's saying, but that's all that's left of me. And I do wonder if it almost indicates on a subconscious level that I've got some belief in an afterlife, or that the body's going to do something. Or maybe it's just purely sentimental, which obviously is going to do me no good because I'll be dead. But
well, the notion that there's, you had said, oh, this is the only part of me that's left. Yeah, but what good is that part if it just sits there and rots away?
Yeah, agreed.
It's not good to you. It's not good to anybody else. So, and by the way, if you're dead, you're not going to know what happens to it.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Yeah, well, I agree, but which is what I find therefore very curious about my lack of willingness to just go, let's put a donor card down and just say, do what you like with my body.
It's strange. It is strange because right in some, I think you're on speaker.
Weird echo.
If you're on speaker, take it off speaker for us. But it seems like you, you wouldn't concern yourself with some horrible event in the past that you would agree that, that's some horrific thing, but you wouldn't be I was concerned at the time, because there's no you at the time. So I don't know where the concerning aspect matters, even if you agree, it feels weird to me now to donate something of my body, but it's for the same reasons that you couldn't be concerned about something that reasonably you should be at the time of going through it. I mean, you're just not there. So I don't really see the connection. There's just clearly the disconnect of it really wouldn't matter what happens to you. If I was grave robbed, I don't know what it would do to me after I'm dead.
I'm wondering, Leon, do you have any, if I don't know if you have a sibling, but if your sibling needed a kidney, would you donate a kidney to your sibling?
Yes.
Yeah, even while you're alive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, and I agree, not everybody would, and I realize people are going to have whatever their concerns are, but I'm if my brother needed a kidney, I'd give it to him right now. I certainly, and I'd probably give it to other people. But once I'm dead, it's I couldn't possibly justify continuing to be, well, first of all, I have no say in it because I'm dead, but I do have a say in it. And this is something that came up in a debate that I did that I think is really important and worth addressing. And that is, Matt Slick basically asked, why do we respect people's wishes with regard to what's going to happen to them after they're dead if they're not going to know anyway? Mm-hmm. And the answer is because it affects their life now. If I live in a world where I know that my wishes about what's going to happen to my body are respected, then I'm free from the anxiety of worrying about what happens after I die. Mm-hmm. But if I live in a world where I know that we don't respect what people want done with their bodies, that no matter what your wishes are, we're going to do what we want with your body after you're dead, this causes anxiety in that person's life while they're alive. And so that's the reason for respecting it, is that it creates a better world so that people aren't, trying to hide bodies or have secret funerals or suffering in anxiety the whole time. And so,
yeah,
if you don't want something done with your body, then I will, fight alongside everybody else to make sure that those wishes are respected. I just, for me, I'm almost done with it now and I'm alive. I'm certainly done with this husk once I'm dead. So I can't come up with a good reason to do anything other than use what you can use and destroy the rest. But is it just is it just something that you're comfy not having a good reason for, or maybe you're squeamish about it? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll think some more about it. But I tell you what, Matt, I really appreciated the Socratic question about would I donate it to a sibling. That's a great reframing. And some of it is, perhaps just the fact I'm aware I don't have a donor card. It's not like someone's come up to me and said, please fill this out, and I've said no. But I've just become aware, particularly since, deconverting, coming out of religion, thinking, well, probably ought to fill one of those out.
Donor cards are dangerous because you could have John Cleese show up and just ask for your liver.
That's great.
I don't know John Cleese.
What?
So
from the UK, and you don't know? Oh man.
From Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
I mean, he's not a friend.
Okay.
But there's the live organ donor thing. And
I don't think I've seen that, but I can imagine it.
Well, hey, thank you.
Make you guys feel uncomfortable that on a similar topic that we go and dig up Egyptians who have been buried, believing they would stay wrapped, mummified forevermore. I mean, obviously their beliefs seem like rubbish, like any other religion. Yet it seems very dishonorable to go and dig them up in the name of history just because a couple of thousand years have passed.
Well, okay. At what point is it okay to start digging up old bodies?
I think probably never. If they think it's it feels like an infringement of religious, rights almost. The freedom of religion, a bit like what you were saying earlier, Matt, where we live our lives hoping that people will respect us. Our wishes for our bodies when we die
for a reasonable amount of time, but we're not gonna have to work to find a new planet to live on because every square meter of ground is covered up with a body of someone who's died in the last 4.5 billion years. That's ridiculous. And so I would argue that beyond a generation or two, I don't know that you are beholden to past generations' wishes about their bodies.
I mean, it's somewhat of a special case because obviously, I presume it was only the Egyptian.
But Leon, it's like saying there's like an entitlement to the land because you died and you were buried there or something. It seems like a really weird thing to me to like, we can't, like, this land no longer belongs to us to do as we please because like, if it is the case that we need to, right, out of utility, I think that trumps that from my perspective. But
it's the only piece of land that you can buy and try to claim ownership of after you're dead is your burial plot. Every other piece of property, which we can have debates about whether or not anybody should own property or how property ownership should go, interesting discussions, but we can at least all agree that while this house and this property that I own right now, I can pass it on to my kids, but it no longer belongs to me when I die. And yet somehow the little area of ground that I put in, while I like the fact that, it's my wishes are at least being respected. Honestly, I really don't care whether or not my wishes are respected because I'll be dead. But I like the fact that we've built a society that does. And so to say that plot of ground is now mine and it's grave robbing for the first 500 years, and then it becomes archaeological investigation or whatever afterwards. I don't know at what point that changes, but I think that there has to be a point where it does.
Okay.
But I don't know.
I think it was a good question, though. Well, Leon, we appreciate it. I'm gonna move on to other callers real quick, and
thanks much.
That's something I never really realized that until the call is that you're kind of what is the entitlement to land once you die? It's a very strange notion, and then Matt, you bring up even better point that things you actually acquire in your life you like lose immediately, but this thing you had no part of like ever, this is yours forever, and then now there's this arbitrary line of when it's grave robbing or checking in on history. But